Yo, what's poppin' guys? Sizzle here, and today we're taking a look at the Desert Eagle skins in CS to try and figure out what the best one is. First off, we have stock, one of the better stock skins in the game. Super iconic, very clean, just a nice metallic finish on the whole thing. Looks really good and pretty hard to go wrong with. I'd say this is one of the better stock weapons in the game for sure. And just for that, I think it belongs in probably at C tier. Starting off really strong. It's nice, bright, simple, clean, just a really nice stock weapon. Next up, we have our first actual skin, the Desert Eagle Mudder. This one's just like a eagle dropped in dirt, like a big pile of mud. I guess that's where Mudder comes from. But yeah, someone dropped this thing in mud, and then that's the skin. It is at least one solidified color, and it's noticeably different from stock, but outside of that, I can't really give it much credit. So I would personally put this thing in D tier. I don't think it's an F tier. I mean, it's just alright. It's at least different. I don't know. It's not awful, but it just really isn't good. That's kind of the problem. Then we have the Deagle Urban DD-Pat, and I mean, this one's just kind of a mess of a bunch of like pixelation. It doesn't look good. The colors all look really bad. This like different texture down by the handle makes it look even worse. It is not well made. The colors don't work, the pattern doesn't work, nothing about this works. I'd say this is actually an F tier. I can't really see a reason to use this. Maybe it looks better in game, and I'm just being a bit picky, but you know, in spec screen it looks absolutely awful. At least this one does. Because I think this is a pattern-based one, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, then we have the Deagle Knight. Very nice, simple, just dark color. I personally prefer stock to this, but I can respect people that do like this. You know, it's just a darker version of the Deagle. Very clean, very simple, and just, you know, pretty nice. I'd say it's definitely a solid C tier. And maybe I just like stock a bit much on this skin, because I think I might move it up to B tier with the Knight. Because I feel like normally the Knight here, this would normally be a B tier skin, but stock for the Deagle is just so good that it's really hard to compete with. Then we have the Deagle Midnight Storm, and this one it doesn't come with a sticker, but yeah, this one I actually really like. It's got a very nice like wavy pattern to it, and really nice colors. I especially like the little wave crash up at the front where your eyes are kind of, you know, drawing their attention. But I mainly like this one for the colors. I mean, the pattern's like alright, but the colors on this are absolutely phenomenal and super unique. Just overall looks like a really clean skin. I really like the look of it, and yeah, I mean, that's all there's to say about it. I can't describe really why I like this as much as I do, but I think this is definitely a solid B tier, if not higher. Then we have the Deagle Bronze, and yeah. This one is kind of like the Urban DD-Pat. I don't really know what's going on here. There's a lot of just random things, and none of them look good. Like, the pattern's absolutely atrocious. The colors are even worse somehow. And they also just don't go together at all, so it's like a lose-lose-lose. This is just a completely awful skin. I can't think of a reason that you'd want to use it. So for me, it's a low F tier. Then next up, we have the Deagle Urban Rubble. And yeah, it's like a camo Deagle skin. Not a big fan of camos, so I'm not a big fan of this skin. But you know, if you are, you know, this is a camo Deagle skin. So there you go. Yeah, for me that's probably low D tier. I really don't like camo skins. I've said that in all my videos. You can go back and check. Then next up we have the Deagle Meteorite, which, I mean, it's got a pattern to it. Got some kind of design, but on the whole it's like a darkish greenish brown color, and I don't know. This is like the pile of leaves like that fell into mud, which looks better than just something that fell into mud, but not by much. Yeah, I mean, it's very simple, very straightforward, but I just like way prefer stock to this. That's kind of the problem with a lot of these Deagle skins, is stock is so good that it's really hard to compete with. I think this one's a D tier. Next up, we have the Deagle Night Heist, and you know, this one's got a color to it. It's like the Night if it was a bit brighter, but it's got all these random scribbles on it, which don't take away a lot from the skin, like too much, but they do take away a good amount. Like all these random scribbles like CCTV and like the X here and whatnot, all kind of just are annoying. There's a lot of just random patterns on here that on a lot of other skins, the like heist family of skins, that actually look kind of cool, but on this one there's not enough space, so you can't really tell what anything on this is, and it just looks like a big mess of a lot of random textures. The colors are somewhat nice though, so I'll give it credit for that, but other than that, it's nothing particularly great. I'm gonna say probably a high D tier, possibly low C tier. Depends on how good the other Deagle skins are. I don't really remember a lot of them. Then we have the Deagle Sputnik, one I used in trade-up videos a bit. Yeah, I mean, it's got a interesting design, I guess. You got this like cool star at the front here that's super noticeable, actually, because you have this nice dark area and there's just a star right at the front where your eyes are actually going to be looking. So just for that alone, this is already a pretty cool skin. But then for the back just doesn't look so great. Now, to be fair, unlike a lot of the other skins, it doesn't look awful. Like, the design actually looks somewhat intentional here, not just random, but doesn't mean it looks that much better. But yeah, all the colors flow together really well. The design itself is kind of iffy, but this little star thing at the front's really cool. But otherwise, it's just kind of an iffy skin. It's definitely, I think, deserving of at least a C tier. I mean, it's got a somewhat solid color scheme, a really cool like star thing at the front, and then pretty iffy actual pattern. I think that's deserving of a C tier. Then we have the Bronze Deco. This one's interesting. I mean, you got like a very, very shiny Deagle on the bottom, and then just these bronze like coverings around it. In-game, this is like even more shiny in my memory, and that's actually why you want this thing. It actually looks kind of good in like sunlight and stuff, but outside of that, I mean, when you're looking at it, like nice and dull or whatever, it's just whatever. It's like a Deagle with a few markings on it, but nothing bad. Like, all the markings don't detract from anything, but they definitely don't make it any better. But just the fact that this is so shiny and so noticeably different, especially on stuff like Inferno, it's okay-ish. I'm gonna say probably around high D tier. Then next up we have the Deagle Corinthian. I think that second one was right. And this one's just nice and clean. It's a very nice like bronze or copper Deagle. And I thought this sticker was part of the skin. That might actually be a decent craft to make, but even without that, it's just a nice copper or bronze Deagle. Now, I personally might prefer stock, but I could totally see why someone might prefer this one instead. It really could go either way, but because of that, I think it's deserving to go, I'll put it above it. I'll be a bit generous, but it really could go either way. This is just like a side grade to stock, and stock is phenomenal, so this is actually a pretty good skin. Then we have the Deagle Oxide Blaze, pretty infamous, budget blaze, if you will. The Deagle Blaze is the really infamous, just everyone wants that skin, for good reason. But yeah, this one, I mean, you have some minor designs here, but mainly it's like a super rusty Deagle with a pretty decent looking white flame coming off the front. Absurdly clean, like even when this is in a bad condition, this one's in good condition, but even in bad condition, it looks just about the same, or if not identical. It's a really nice design, pretty hard to go wrong with. I'd say probably low A tier. It's just clean. Fire coming off the front of the weapon looks great, and especially on the Deagle. Like, the flames coming off the front of the weapon, I feel like was almost made for the Deagle. The only bad part about this skin is the color scheme, but that's why it's a blue and not like a higher rarity or more expensive. But it's just nice. It's a nice design. It looks different from stock, and it's very absurdly clean for the textures it uses. Anyway, next up, we have ourselves the Deagle Blue Ply. And, yeah, it's like a light blue plywood at the top, and then, like, burnt wood at the bottom. Or, like, not burnt wood, like ashes, like ash wood, I guess, is a better description. Yeah, I mean, it looks alright. Definitely not awful, but nothing too crazy. It's got a nice, like, the color blue is really nice here, so I gotta give a lot of credit for that. And the actual texture definitely isn't bad either. I'd say it's definitely solid, like right under stock, and stock is amazing. I'm actually gonna move stuff around. I'm gonna move these up to B tier to better show my actual thoughts, and this is my actual thoughts here. I think the stuff in C tier is like solid, the stuff in B tier is really good, and then A tier and S tier, like, A tier is like pretty much impossible to go wrong with, and then S tier is like this is probably what you should get. It's a good skin. Speaking of S tier, here's the Deagle Blaze, the most like iconic, one of the most iconic skins in CS. Yeah, I mean it does what the Oxide Blaze does, but better. Instead of having like rust and then like a white like texture on the front, it's very nice like black, solid black back with a beautiful like flame texture coming off the front. Built like specifically for this skin, it just looks absolutely amazing. It looks even better in game. If I was like a multi-millionaire, I probably would be using this, but it's just absurdly pricey because everyone wants it and there's just not that much of it to go around. But yeah, definitely a high S tier, probably the best Deagle skin of all time. I don't know if there's a way to really beat this one, to be honest with you. Then we have the Deagle Pilot, which, yeah, it's like yet again another side grade to the Deagle. Instead of having a clean silver like finish, you have this like little pilot stripe thing here, and then a little bit of golds here in the back. It's depending on who you ask, this is either better or worse than stock. In my personal opinion, I actually like the single color that stock has a bit more than this one. But I could totally see why you put this maybe above stock with like the bronze one or whatever. I feel like those three skins are kind of interchangeable in B tier. They're basically just side grades of each other. So you know, I respect you if you like this one, but for me, I do prefer stock to this. Then we have the Deagle Hand Cannon, the infamous trade-up skin to get to the Dragon Lore. And I'm glad this was a trade-up skin, because it's just alright. I mean, there definitely could have been other Deagle skins that I would much rather have been the trade-up skin, but this one isn't particularly amazing. It's like a super rusty, dirty Deagle with a decently nice-looking light blue top, and then this weird, like, barf texture in the front. I guess it is different in the front, and it doesn't look completely awful. I'm like shitting on it a bit too much, but I think it's basically a worse version of what the blue ply does, but it's still definitely pretty solid. I'm gonna put it probably at a high C tier. Because I do really like the color blue here. It reminds me of like the AK-47 like blue gem. But if it was, you know, super dirty and a bit harder to see, like if this skin didn't have all this random dirt all over the place, it might actually be really clean. But even with the dirt, this color of blue really shines through. It's a really nice color of blue, and just for that, it's in C tier. Because the actual design, or whatever, is like, it's alright. I mean, you do have something on the tip, and then a design on the back, which I think is how Deagle skin should be made. So I give it credit for that as well. But I don't know, the dirtiness of it just puts in C tier for me. Then we have one of the two Deagle Sunset Storms. There's two different ones because there's, you know, the symbol at the end here is actually different. But yeah, this is the one with the guy with the face at the bottom, just kind of chilling there. Whenever you're reloading, you'll see this guy, and then otherwise, I mean, same things I liked about that like turquoise one I like here. I actually like the turquoise color a bit more than the red one, but I could totally see why you might like the red one more. It's like a blood red sea or whatever. And then the guy in the bottom, just like a funny little detail that you're never really gonna see. But I'm gonna put that one probably right around his brother in B tier. Yeah, I think those are kind of interchangeable. It's basically color preference. Then we have the Sunset Storm with a different symbol. You can see it's the same skin, but without that guy there. And I think without that guy there, the skin's actually a lot worse. I feel like, also, I think the top looks a bit off as well. Maybe this is a pattern-based one. But I thought, like, other skin actually looked way better than this one, so I don't know. I'm gonna put this one a bit down. I think I'm gonna do this. The face guy is definitely above the turquoise, which is definitely above the other red one. I don't know why you get the other red one, because they're within like $10 of each other. And the one with the guy's face on it just looks better. Maybe it's pattern based though, and that might be the problem here. I don't really know. If it is, please let me know in the comments. Then we have the Deagle Emerald Jormungandr, I think so you say it. Or Mungandr, I don't know. But yeah, you have this cool little like face thing on the front of the like trigger area, and then otherwise it's kind of like serpent wrapping around in like these, you know, green serpent wrapping around with some blue in the background too. It's a nice mix of colors, generally just like a greenish Deagle. Decent pattern, but nothing too crazy. I'd say probably I'm gonna actually move this down to B tier, and then put it C tier, like the blue plywood, and then move this right below it. I think that's about where it belongs. Then we have the Deagle Heirloom, which is just a worse version of stock. They take away a bit of that shine and then add these random, like, pretty bad looking gold designs to it. Or is that even gold? It's more like a what's the thing? Copper? Not copper. I can't think of the material right now, but you know what I mean. A brass. It's just like some random little brass designs here. It looks way worse than stock. I would literally never use this. Like, at least with the other things in F tier, there's a difference. This one is barely different, and it's just worse. Then we have the Deagle Crimson Web. Pretty old school skin. A lot of people really liked this one for a while. And I don't really see too much why. It's super dull, and the actual web is kind of whatever. It's just kind of there. It almost looks like a cracked red Deagle. Like, you know, it had a red paint job that was super clean, and then, you know, over a few years of use, the paint started to, like, crack and wear off a bit, and that's what you're left with right here. It's definitely not awful, but I don't think it's that amazing either. I'm gonna say it's probably just a solid C tier, like high C tier skin. Next up, we have the Deagle Naga, which, yet again, just a slight variant on stock. This one's a bit more dull, but has this cool little, like, skull serpent thing coming out the front. If you like that design, you'll like this. Me personally, I do prefer just the general cleanliness of stock, but I could totally see why someone might like this design, and, you know, therefore the skin a little bit, and would put it maybe above the Deagle. The stock Deagle, but for me, it's probably below, like, the pilot one. I like the pilot one a bit more, but I still prefer stock to both of them because it's just so clean. And, you know, being honest, I actually like the stock more than the bronze version of stock, but the bronze version of stock, like I said, is yet another side grid. Then we have the Deagle Directive, and, yeah, this one's like one of those HD skins. This one looks kind of like a Wasteland, like a futuristic Fallout Deagle. You know what I mean? I don't know if you know what I mean with that, actually, but hopefully you do. That's pretty much my thoughts on it. It's got some color of blue that you can basically just not see at any point in this. But it's just kind of like a HD blackish Deagle with a bit of blue on it. And it looks alright, but it's nothing too crazy. I'm gonna say probably just a C tier skin, probably, I know, right around the hand cannon from before. The question is, which one of these is it? I think it's this one, but this looks different for some reason in the preview. Anyway, that's that. Then we have the Deagle Light Rail. A lot of people use this as a substitute for the Blaze, and I can kind of see why. It's got similar-ish colors, or you kind of have the colors of the fire come out the front. Instead of a black backdrop, though, you have a gray one. It's you know, it's alright. It's kind of like a, you know, metal. It's, you know, you have like a metal Deagle with a bit of HD texturing to it, and then you kind of have it singeing at the front, I think is the word, but it just really does not look particularly amazing. It definitely doesn't look awful or anything, but I really think it's just a solid, maybe like C tier around the, probably under the Emerald or Manga or whatever. Then we have the Deagle Trigger Discipline, which, yeah, this one just looks kind of nice. Like, it has that design I was talking about. You have something coming off the front here, and then you have a just solid design in the back, right? You have a solid, nice, like, blackish gray in the back. You have Trigger Discipline, a very clear text right here, which I guess that's, yeah, that's cool for some people. And a nice little blue, I forgot what this is called, in the back. A nice blue, like, sight thing in the front. And then a nice just pink tip. It just looks pretty solid, pretty good all around. I'd say this is definitely a solid A tier skin. Then next up, we have the Deagle Fennec Fox. And, you know, this is a pretty infamous trade-up skin for the Desert Hydra, I believe. Yeah, you have, like, this little fox thing staring off into the distance, and a bunch of, like, elaborate details in the back, with a general orangish-red color scheme. It's super bright, I guess, that's the main thing you have going for it, but honestly, unless you really like the design, it's nothing crazy. It's really hard to see a lot of the details outside of the fox. Like, I don't really know what this is in the back. But yeah, I mean, it's got decent colors, and you know, if you like the pattern, you like the skin a lot, but for me, I don't like the pattern that much. For me, probably, yet again, exactly where the light rail was, but one above it. It's definitely better than the light rail, but not by much. Yeah. Then next up, we have the Deagle Hypnotic. I believe that's what I'm using at the moment. if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no, I think I'm using the MP9 Hypnotic, but yeah. Deagle Hypnotic, you got, yeah, a whitish, like a silver or white, depending on the lighting, background with just a bunch of, like, GoldenEye, you know, the GoldenEye 64 intro, kind of reminds me of that, just the way these rings are done. And yeah, I mean, that's what it is. It's very pattern-based, like this one has a pretty nice amount of rings, I feel, and looks really nice, but you could have less rings or more rings, it could be placed differently or whatever. But the point is basically rings coming off at some point, just with a nice-ish, you know, silverish background. It looks super bright in the right lighting. But yeah, it's just alright. I use this one because I like a good sticker to go with it. There's like a hypnotic surf or whatever. But honestly, I think it's, you know, marginally better or worse than stock. And for me, I think yet again, it's just marginally worse than stock. Stock Deagle is really just one of the better stocks by a good amount. Then we have the Deagle Cobalt Disruption. And this one is a nice blue Deagle. Got some interesting colors and like textures when you shine on it. But for the most part, you see like a mostly, you know, nice. I mean, cobalt is the word in the skin, and that's kind of the color it has. It's just nice cobalt skin, and it's got some, you know, some pattern when you have lighting on it. It actually isn't really a good pattern or anything. Most of the time, you don't see it that much, so it's not that much of an issue. And even when you do, it's not like a negative. It's just kind of some interest. I guess it makes you look at the skin a bit more. But yeah, it's got a really, really nice color and just an okay pattern with like a little cool gimmick. I think that's enough to put it as a solid B tier skin. Then next up, we have the Deagle Conspiracy. And this one is just a solid, nice, like, black, simple Deagle. It's yet again another side grade, but unlike the Knight, this one looks a bit more refined, a bit more nice. Yeah, it just looks pretty good. Can't really go too wrong with this one either. I think it's a solid B tier. There's just a lot of good Deagle skins in the game, to be honest, but yeah, nothing really holds up to the Blaze. Then we have the Deagle Kamuichi Dragon, I believe it's called. It's got a interesting purple handle that you never see, but if you did, I mean, that's just a really cool detail, with like a little dragon on it. And then it has like this little dragon texture at the top, on a interesting color of backdrop, like a nice color of gray. Yeah, it looks alright. It's got an okay design. Nothing too crazy, but definitely not bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think this one is, you know, just a solid B tier as well. I think we should somehow split up the B and C tiers here, but honestly, I mean, the stuff in S and A tier are kind of on their own there. But I guess I could move up these into A tier, but just know that the two above it, I think, are way better than the four below, but I guess the other four are pretty hard to go wrong with, that are currently in A tier. Anyway, next up we have the Deagle Mecha Industries. I used this one for a bit, and I couldn't really tell you why. I mean, it's got an okay-ish, whitish, like, mainly white coloring with some random tan thing coming through the middle, and a random black part here. The mix of black, white, and tan isn't particularly great. Most of what you see is the white front at least, but honestly, I've used this one a bit, and I don't really know why. I just had it, and I just didn't feel like, you know, looking into what Deagle's gonna get instead, and I don't use the Deagle enough where it's like super problematic to have like this. But yeah, I mean, you get this one because it's got like a whitish texture, but I think now they have better ones for that, so I don't really know. It's like the poor man's white Deagle, but it's got so much just random clutter in the way that it's like not super clean, and it makes it a little bit less good than it really could have been, but I think it's somewhat decent C tier. Probably lower end C tier, to be honest with you. Then we have the Deagle Golden Koi, and, you know, this one's got the koi, like, scaling, with a general, I don't know what color this is, but it's got the same color on, like, the whole skin. Works pretty well with lighting. It's a very simple pattern, very nice pattern. Pretty decent design. Yet again, this feels more like brass than gold or anything, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's actually pretty solid. I'm gonna put it at low B tier. Yeah, I think it's pretty decent. Then we have the Deagle Code Red. And this one's just a nice red Deagle. I don't think we had any other red Deagles, but this one, kind of like the Mecha Industries, where it has a lot of random clutter that just doesn't have to be there. If this was just a nice black handle with like a red top, I think I'd really like the skin, but it's like a mostly red top with random silver parts coming through and a few black lines here and there and just, you know, random, like, D and stuff, like just random text and whatnot that just kind of gets in the way of this being a super clean skin. I mean, I guess for some people it's cooler, but for me that's really a negative. But it is a very uniquely like red skin. I really do like this color of red, and for that alone, I think it's worth B tier. That's basically all it has going for it, is the nice color of red. The actual pattern is kind of a mess. Then we have the Deagle print stream. I think this is the next best thing behind the Blaze. Very, I mean, look, there's a lot of random stuff on the top or whatever, but on the whole, it's very clean white. And then it has a very nice black handle. You even have these little, like, rainbow strips that change color, like, around the top here. You can see it right where my mouse is. Kind of change color a little, and that's a cool little detail. And I know the print stream in particular has this cool thing where when you're Molotov, and it makes it, like, really, the whole skin gets, like, super glowy. But even without that, I mean, this is just a super clean skin. The like little details are actually kind of a plus more than a negative, because if you have something that's completely white and large, because like there's like the P250 and the USPS whiteout are really clean because they're white and small and just a single color. But because this is a bit bigger, you need some kind of details, or else it ends up looking super bland, even if it is clean. And this has just the right amount of details that it's still super clean, but also like, not bland. It's really nice. Definitely an S tier skin. I think definitely under the Blaze, just without a doubt. But it's a very respectable second place. Then next up we have the Deagle Ocean Drive. This is our final skin. This one's got some really nice colors and a pretty decent pattern to it. Just interesting little cutout around most of the skin, and just some, I don't know, vaporwave like coloring to it with a really weird pattern, really goofy like art. It looks pretty solid though. It's very like, I don't know what the word is that I'm thinking of, but like vibratic or something like that. Yeah, very vibratic skin, okay-ish patterns, but you get this one because you like the colors. The patterns are right, but you get this one if you like the colors. And for me, I like the colors a good amount, so it's a high B tier. And that's all the Deagle skins. I hope you guys enjoyed looking at these skins as much as I did, and I will see you in the next one.